Welcome to another deep dive. Today we'll be looking at profound life advice, but not from the usual suspects. We're going to be looking at the poetry of Kabir, a 15th century Indian mystic,
Oh, wow.
as seen through the lens of Osho,
Okay.
a 20th century spiritual teacher. Now you might be thinking, what could a mystic poet and a modern spiritual teacher have to say to me?
Right.
That's relevant to my life today.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at.
That's fascinating how those two can be brought together. Ancient wisdom and a modern perspective. It's like a conversation across time.
Yeah.
Where Kabir's poetry sets the stage.
Yeah.
And then Osho kind of unpacks it.
I love that idea. A conversation across time. So imagine that you're searching for guidance about how to live a better life,
Yeah.
more fulfilling.
Uh-huh.
Where would you turn?
Right.
Would you turn to a self-help guru, a therapist? Today, we're going to be looking at wisdom. That can be found at the intersection of poetry and philosophy.
Right. And Osho has this beautiful analogy that he uses to describe us, human beings.
Okay.
He compares each person to a simple clay lamp.
Okay.
You know, the kind you might find in a village home.
Nothing fancy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simple, baked earth. And inside this very humble vessel burns a divine flame. And that symbolizes the inner light, the soul, the potential that's inside every single one of us. The contrast is really striking, isn't it? This very earthly, fragile container holding a spark of the infinite.
Wow. That image really makes you stop and think. It makes you think, how often do we forget about that inner light
Right.
when we're just caught up in the day-to-day?
Exactly. It's a good reminder to look beyond the surface, connect with that deeper dimension inside of ourselves. And this leads us to Kabir's perspective
Okay.
on how to live a fulfilling life. Now, he actually rejected the two most common paths
Really?
that people choose, the path of worldly indulgence
Yeah.
and the path of extreme asceticism.
You'd think a mystic poet would be all about renouncing the world.
That's what you'd think.
Yeah.
But he offered a third way, the path of the avidhood.
Yeah, avidhood.
And this word means someone who is different, someone who walks a middle path, finding that balance between those two extremes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So it's not about indulging every desire,
Right.
but it's also not about denying yourself.
Exactly.
So what does this middle path look like? What does this look like in practice?
Well, Kabir used the principle of nirat, which means avoiding extremes and staying in the middle. So think about your work life. How could you apply nirat to your work life? Maybe it means setting boundaries between work and leisure time, or finding a balance between striving for success and also prioritizing your well-being.
So it's about bringing that sense of balance to all areas of life.
Exactly. Osho connected this concept to everyday choices, like how much you eat, how much you sleep, how much you talk, even how much you work. It's about finding that rhythm that nourishes your body and your soul.
I love how he uses the example of eating to illustrate this. Think about the difference between mindlessly overeating and enjoying a balanced meal.
Right.
You feel heavy and sluggish
Yes.
after overindulging. But when you eat mindfully, you feel light and energized.
Exactly.
It's like that in so many areas of life, right?
You're right.
We're always searching for that sweet spot between too much and too little.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Kabir's philosophy is all about bringing awareness to every aspect of your life. So you're not starved, but you're not overstuffed,
Yeah.
physically or emotionally.
Yeah.
Now, Kabir also delves into a more complex, potentially controversial area,
Oh, okay.
the connection between sexual energy and spiritual growth.
This is where things can get a little tricky.
It's important to approach this topic with an open mind
Yeah.
and with sensitivity. What's crucial to understand is that Osho viewed sexual energy as a really powerful force that could be channeled for spiritual transformation.
Okay.
Rather than suppressing or indulging in this energy,
Yeah.
it can be consciously directed.
That's a very different perspective
It is.
than what a lot of traditional spiritual teachings advocate.
Yeah,
It's a topic that requires careful consideration
it does.
and personal reflection,
Yes.
and we're simply presenting Osho's perspective
yes.
as it relates to Kabir's teaching, and encourage you to draw your own conclusions. But let's move on to another fascinating aspect of Kabir's philosophy, the wisdom of the body.
Yes. Osho makes this compelling observation
Okay.
that the body is far more intelligent than the mind. It's evolved over millennia
Wow.
and holds a deep well of instinctual wisdom.
That's fascinating. I've never thought of it that way. This idea that the body is more intelligent than the mind.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this experiment with the babies.
Well, researchers at Harvard presented a group of babies with a bunch of different foods,
Okay.
and they watched what they chose. And amazingly, they instinctively selected the foods that were the most nutritious for them, even when they were surrounded by tempting but less healthy options.
Wow, that's incredible. That
Yeah.
really speaks to the body's innate intelligence.
It does. And this connects back to you in a practical way. Think about how you might be ignoring your body's signals in your life. Are you eating when you're not hungry? Are you pushing yourself when you're tired? Kabir's path encourages us to tune back in and honor the body's wisdom as a guide on the journey.
It's about recognizing that the body isn't an obstacle to overcome,
Right.
but rather a sacred vessel that can support our growth and evolution.
Exactly.
So we've explored the inner light,
Yes.
the concept of nirat, moderation,
Yeah.
the wisdom of the body. But where does this lead? What is the ultimate aim of Kabir's path?
Well, the ultimate goal is union with the divine, symbolized by the Onkar,
Onkar.
the primordial sound of existence.
That sounds profound. Can you elaborate on what the Onkar means?
Yes. Osho describes the Onkar as the source,
Yeah.
the underlying vibration that just permeates all of creation. It's like the electricity that powers the entire universe, the cosmic symphony that plays out in every atom and every cell.
Wow. That's a beautiful analogy. So to experience the Onkar is to connect with the very essence of being.
Exactly. And Osho even shared this captivating Zen story to illustrate this concept. It's about a boy. He was given this seemingly impossible task, to hear the sound of one hand clapping.
That sounds a little absurd. How can you clap with just one hand?
That's the whole point. It's a metaphor for experiencing the Onkar. It highlights that paradoxical nature of this quest. It's about going beyond duality, beyond the limitations of our senses, to tap into a deeper reality.
Silencing the mind and tuning into the subtle vibrations that permeate all of existence.
Precisely. And this brings us to some profound questions. How can you tune into this universal symphony? What does it mean to experience the Onkar in your own life?
These are questions that Kabir and Osho invite us to explore on our own inner journey. But to further understand Kabir's perspective, we need to delve deeper into his unique path, the path of the Avatat. And we'll do just that in the next part of this deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Kabir, as interpreted by Osho.
Now, before the break, we were about to explore Kabir's unique path, the path of the Avatat.
Right.
So you mentioned that Kabir rejected both the worldly path and the ascetic path. So what does this Avatat path look like?
Yeah, it's not about renouncing the world, like
Right.
into traditional sense, like becoming a monk or anything,
Mhm.
but it's about finding this kind of dynamic balance between engaging with the world and then maintaining a detachment from it.
So you can still enjoy life's pleasures,
Right.
but without being a slave to them.
Precisely. Kabir's path emphasizes living fully in the world, but at the same time, cultivating this inner awareness that remains untouched by external circumstances.
So it's like a lotus flower
Exactly.
that blossoms in muddy water,
Yeah.
but it isn't stained by the mud.
Exactly. And it all ties back into Nirat, right? Avoiding extremes, finding that middle ground.
Right.
Think about how we often swing between extremes in our own lives, working ourselves to exhaustion and then crashing,
Yeah.
indulging in excess and then feeling guilty.
Like we're on an emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
Always trying to find balance.
Kabir's wisdom encourages us to just step off the roller coaster, find a steady, grounded way of being. It's about cultivating an inner equilibrium that lets us navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and equanimity.
So it's not about suppressing our desires or denying our experiences,
Right.
but finding a healthy way to relate to them.
Yeah, and that requires a really deep level of self-awareness. It's about understanding our tendencies, what triggers us,
Yeah.
and finding ways to channel our energy in a constructive way. And, Kabir uses a rather unexpected example to illustrate this point, the channeling of sexual energy.
Right. And as we touched on earlier, this is where Osho's interpretation can get a little bit complex.
It can.
He saw sexual energy as a very potent force.
Yes.
With the potential for spiritual growth.
Yeah.
He believed that instead of suppressing or recklessly indulging in this energy, that it could be transformed
Transformed.
and directed upwards.
Yes, and this idea of transforming sexual energy isn't unique to Osho.
Yeah.
I mean, many spiritual traditions throughout history have explored this connection between sexuality and spirituality.
Yay.
However, it is a topic that often gets misunderstood or taken out of context.
Definitely. It's important to approach this topic with sensitivity and to understand all of the nuances involved. Now, Osho was known for his controversial views on sexuality, and we are not advocating for any specific practices or beliefs here.
No.
Our aim is simply to explore these ideas as they relate to Kabir's teachings.
Right.
So just to be clear, Osho emphasized that true spiritual celibacy is not about repression or denial,
Exactly.
but a conscious choice to redirect this energy.
Towards a higher purpose.
Right. Now, I'm really fascinated by this idea that the body has its own intelligence.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how often we ignore our gut feelings.
Right.
Or push ourselves beyond our limits.
You've hit on a key point.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned to distrust our bodies, to see them as obstacles to overcome, instead of sources of wisdom and guidance.
But Kabir's path invites us to reconnect with our bodies.
Yes.
To listen to their subtle whispers.
Exactly.
And honor their innate intelligence.
It's about recognizing that the body's not just a physical vessel, but a temple that houses the divine spark within.
Right. And that leads us back to the ultimate goal of this path.
Yeah.
Union with the divine, symbolized by the Onkar, the primordial sound of existence.
Yes, Osho describes the Onkar as the source, the underlying vibration from which everything arises.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. Think of it like the electricity that powers the entire universe, or the cosmic symphony playing out in every atom and every cell.
Wow. So to experience the Onkar is to connect with the very essence of being, to merge with the source of creation.
Precisely. Remember that Zen story we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
About the boy searching for the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for experiencing the Onkar. It's about going beyond the limitations of our senses, quieting the mind, tuning into the subtle vibrations that permeate all of existence.
It sounds like a profound and challenging journey. But how do we actually cultivate this awareness
Right.
and connect with the Onkar in our daily lives?
One of the key elements of Kabir's path is the cultivation of Surat, which means awareness, mindfulness, remembrance.
So it's about bringing a heightened sense of awareness to each moment.
Exactly. Paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, sensations, actions. Becoming fully present in the here and now, without judgment or resistance.
But that's so difficult in today's world.
It is.
Our minds are constantly racing.
Right.
We're bombarded with information and distraction.
It's definitely a practice. It takes discipline and commitment. But Kabir believed that through consistent effort, we can train our minds to become more still, more focused, more receptive to the subtle vibrations of the Onkar.
So this surat, this mindfulness, isn't just about formal meditation.
No, it's not.
It's about bringing that awareness to everything we do.
Right. Eating mindfully, walking mindfully, working mindfully, even relating to others mindfully.
It's transforming every moment
Yes.
into an opportunity for spiritual growth.
And this leads us to another key element of Kabir's path,
Okay.
the practice of nirad, or moderation.
So we're back to balance.
Exactly. Avoiding extremes. Kabir believed that excess in any form, whether it's overeating, overworking, or even excessive spiritual practices, can actually hinder our progress on the spiritual path.
It's about finding that sustainable rhythm, a way of living that nourishes both the body and the soul.
And this moderation extends to our thoughts and emotions as well. It's about finding that middle ground between suppressing and indulging, between reacting impulsively
Right.
and getting lost in our thoughts.
It's about cultivating that sense of inner stability that allows us to observe our experiences without getting swept away by them.
Yes, and through this practice of surat and nirat, through cultivating awareness and moderation, Kabir believed that we can gradually purify our minds and bodies, making ourselves more receptive to the Onkar.
So it's like we're clearing away the static
Exactly.
and interference
Yes.
so that we can tune in to the subtle music of the universe.
And as we become more attuned to this inner symphony, we begin to experience a profound shift in our perception.
The boundaries between the self and the other start to dissolve.
Yes.
And we begin to see the interconnectedness of all things.
We realize that we are not separate individuals, but expressions of the same divine essence, the same Onkar, that vibrates throughout all of creation.
And this realization brings a deep sense of peace,
Yes.
joy,
Yes.
and liberation.
Exactly.
Merging with the Onkar, the cosmic symphony. It's a beautiful vision. But how do we actually experience that? How do we experience that in our daily lives? It all sounds very abstract.
Well, Kabir was a poet, so his teachings are full of imagery and metaphor, but his message is also very practical. He believed that the path to enlightenment doesn't require us to renounce the world or engage in extreme practices.
It's about finding the sacred within the ordinary.
Exactly. Kabir saw divinity in everything. From the simplest acts of daily life to the profound experiences of nature, he encourages us to approach everything with reverence, with a sense of awe and wonder.
So it's about shifting our perspective, seeing the world through the eyes of a mystic.
You could say that. It's about cultivating an awareness that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things, the divine spark that animates every being. And that brings us back to the body as a temple.
Right. Earlier, we were talking about how the body is more intelligent than the mind. So how does honoring the body fit into Kabir's philosophy?
Well, Kabir believed that by honoring the body, by treating it with care and respect, you could create a more harmonious relationship between your physical and spiritual selves.
So that could involve things like eating nourishing food, moving our bodies in ways that feel good, and getting enough rest.
Yes. And it goes beyond that. It also includes how you speak to yourself, how you handle your emotions, and how you interact with others. It's about cultivating kindness, compassion, and reverence in every aspect of your life.
So it's not just about external practices, but an internal shift in attitude and awareness.
Exactly. Kabir's path is a path of the heart. It's about opening yourself to love, to joy, to gratitude, and to the beauty that surrounds you.
And this brings us back to the Ankar, the underlying vibration of the universe, the cosmic symphony that plays out in every atom and every cell.
Kabir believed that by attuning yourself to that inner symphony, you could tap into a source of infinite wisdom and power.
It's like we become instruments in the cosmic orchestra, resonating with that divine harmony.
And this resonance, this connection to the Ankar, can manifest in countless ways. It might be a deep sense of peace and contentment, a surge of creative energy, or a profound sense of interconnectedness with all beings.
Endless possibilities. It seems like the path to experiencing the Ankar is unique for each individual.
You're absolutely right. There's no one right way to do it. It's about finding your own rhythm, your own way of tuning in to the music of the universe.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the wisdom of Kabir, as interpreted by Osho. We've explored the inner light, the path of the Avadhut, the importance of Surat and Nirat, the body as a temple, and the ultimate goal of merging with the Ankar.
We hope you found this exploration valuable, and that it will spark further reflection and discovery on your own path.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we'd like to leave you with a final thought. If the body is indeed a temple, and the Ankar is the cosmic symphony that plays out in every cell, what rituals and practices can you cultivate to experience this sacred connection in your daily life?
Maybe it's just taking a moment to breathe deeply and appreciate the miracle of your own existence. Maybe it's about expressing gratitude for the beauty that surrounds you.
It could be about moving your body with joy, connecting with nature, or simply listening with your whole heart.
The key is to find what resonates with you, what helps you connect with that divine spark within, and the cosmic symphony that unites us all.
So go forth and explore. May your journey be filled with wonder, insight, and the sweet music of the Ankar.